you. What a welcome to the Tea Party, and thank you to Mike for his leadership. And to this group here, I owe a special thanks. The Independence Hall Tea Party PAC. All right? You guys were the first Tea Party PAC in the nation to endorse me, and I appreciate your help. Thank you. And Michael, I appreciate you bringing Tea Party members from the tri-state area together. And I just heard Senator Joe Carrillo. He's going to be a U.S. Senator soon. I look forward to Washington to work with that guy. He's a terrific guy. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate you being here. Thank you. Now, I am asked from time to time what it is like running for president. I had not expected to have the great privilege of doing this, and I find myself having the time of my life. Yeah, there are challenges, and there are days that you get beat up in the newspaper and you don't worry about it because you don't read them. And instead, you talk, Ann and I do amongst ourselves about the great experiences we've had and the people we've met. And the good news is that America is not just made up of the people you see on the news, who by and large have done something unusual. That's why they're in the news. And typically what they've done has not been real good, and that's also why they're in the news. I had the chance to meet everyday Americans living their lives in states across the country. And I come away with more confidence and more optimism about our future. Because Americans are patriotic. We love this country. We understand the principles of freedom that build this country. We also are very entrepreneurial as a people. I was with one woman who runs a business. She said actually her husband runs the operations of the business, but she's the chief executive. She said that I guess he lost his job a number of years ago, and he took a class in upholstering. And now they have 40 people that work for them, making upholstered products. It's just... I was in one factory, and as I recall, a couple hundred workers. It was Norm Burns' factory. I went into his office. He has plaques of his patents. He has electrical products that he makes. Over 100 patents. I asked him where he went to graduate school in engineering. He said he didn't. I thought, well, where'd you go undergraduate? Where'd you get your undergraduate degree? Didn't do that either. Just an entrepreneur, an innovator. And by virtue of his skill and his insights and his dreams, he was able to build a business that employs hundreds of people. I met another fellow who lost his job I think he lost his job or left it in an advertising agency, and he and his son decided to start a business making amplifiers for electric guitars. 4 people in total work in their business, or did. And I just marvel at the nature of American entrepreneurship and innovativeness. It has driven our economy to be the strongest in the world. But these last 3.5 years, they haven't been so good. These have been real tough times, as you know. We have had 38 straight months with unemployment above 8%. And the president said if we let him borrow $787 billion, we'd not have unemployment above 8%. We've had 2.8 million homes foreclosed upon. We have today the longest period of long-term unemployment, the worst long-term unemployment record we've seen in America's history. Home values have dropped in some places by 1/3 or more. The median income in America, the median income in the last 4 years has dropped by 10%, even as gasoline prices have now doubled, and as people are paying more for health care, obviously, in part because of Obamacare. And so the American people are struggling right now, and we have a president that doesn't seem to understand that he's been part of the problem, not part of the solution. And I listen to him. He's got these ideas. His big idea now is this Buffett rule, which is that someone calculated, by the way, that the taxes he would raise from this Buffett rule would pay for 11 hours. Would pay for 11 hours to the government. All right. This is not exactly a grand idea. This man is out of ideas. He's out of excuses. And in 2012, we're going to make sure he gets put out of office. just don't think he understands the power of what makes America such a unique and exceptional nation, economically and perhaps otherwise. I used to be in the business world. For 25 years, I was in business, and I traveled around to different countries, and I remarked at some point at the enormous differences in the economic vitality of nations that were right next door to each other. And I wondered why that was. Why is America so economically powerful and Mexico so much poorer? Why is Chile so successful and Ecuador so far less successful? Why is Israel such a powerhouse economically and Egypt so far away? And then I read a book by a former professor. It was called The Wealth and Poverty of Nations. And he tracks the history of civilizations that grew to become dominant, powerful, and then how they declined. And after about 500 pages of analysis, he says roughly these words. He said, if you can learn anything at all from the history of the economic development of the world, it's this. Culture makes all the difference. What people believe, their principles, what motivates them, what guides them, that makes all the difference in the world. And the culture of America, the principles of America, were established by founders like that one. When they wrote the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, their insight suggested both that they were brilliant and inspired, because they wrote words that have changed America, made us exceptional, and changed the world. They said the Creator endowed us with our rights, not the government, not the king, not the state, but the Creator. And among those rights were life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. We would be free in this nation with personal freedoms. We would have the capacity to elect people to represent us in government. That's liberty. But then we would also have the right to pursue happiness as we choose. Rather than having the government guide our course in life, or the circumstance of birth determining what we could achieve, Americans would be free to pursue their dreams. Some of the greatest success stories in American history are people who started off with nothing but an idea and a corner in the garage, and have then built enterprises that employ hundreds, even thousands of other Americans. This freedom has propelled America to be the most powerful economy in the world. And the reason this president has had such a hard time understanding what it takes to get the economy going again is he doesn't understand the power and impact of economic freedom. Piece by piece, he has waged war on economic freedom in this country. You think about this. When you have a government that every year adds $1 trillion to the debt, you're crushing the freedom of the next generation. When you have a government like this one that says they want to raise taxes from 35% to 40%. By the way, do you know what proportion of our private sector workforce works in businesses that are taxed at the individual tax rate? That 35% rate, which he wants to take to 40%. 54% of American workers work in businesses taxed as individuals. You raise that tax rate, you will kill jobs. It kills economic freedom. And then there's Vice President Biden. He's proposed a new global tax. I'm not quite sure what it's going to look like, but he likes the idea of a global tax. And the president, of course, is going across the nation campaigning to raise taxes on investment. This is their approach. And taxes, by their very definition, limit our freedom. They should be as small as possible to do those things that are absolutely essential, like protecting our national security, providing for our schools, caring for those who can't care for themselves. So deficits limit our economic freedom. Raising taxes affects our economic freedom. Regulation. You have to have regulations to make a marketplace work. You have to have rules and regulations. But regulations that get too large can overwhelm the enterprises that you're trying to encourage. So when our friends in Washington pass a bill known as Dodd-Frank, because they say they're concerned about these too big to fail banks, they don't understand that what they did is make it harder, not on the big banks, but on the community banks. They make it harder for them to renegotiate with homeowners so they can stay in their homes. They make it harder for small banks to compete. Guess what's happened since Dodd-Frank? The bigger banks got bigger, and the community banks have been the ones most badly hurt. We're seeing an insinuation of regulators throughout our economy, making it harder and harder for enterprises to accomplish their mission and put people to work, crushing economic freedom. I mean, we built an interstate highway system once. We built the Hoover Dam. Today we can't even build a pipeline, for Pete's sake. There was a time we were known as the manufacturing headquarters of the world, largest exporter in the world. Now we're known for being the lawsuit capital of the world. There was a time, by the way, our schools were so superb that our kids were the best educated in the world. Now, 1/2 of all the kids in our 50 largest cities won't even graduate from high school. It's just criminal to see what's happened as a result of policies where Washington gets larger and larger and doesn't respect the power and impact of free enterprise and freedom. President Obama thinks the economy is struggling because the stimulus wasn't big enough. The economy is struggling because government is too big, and we're going to bring it down to size. This campaign's just getting going. It's going to be fun. We're going to be at it. And the contrast could not be bigger. He said the other day, this is going to be a defining election. That's one thing I agree with him on. We have a very different vision for America. My vision says, for instance, we can't keep spending more than we take in to the tune of $1 trillion a year. It's time for us to cut, cap, and balance the budget. People say, how are you going to do that? And I say, well, what we do is you start off by taking all the programs we have and say, which of them can we not just slow their rate of growth in? Which ones can we eliminate, get rid of, cut all together? And the first on the list is Obamacare. Let's go to that one. You know, there are other programs we're going to keep because they're important, but we're not going to have them run at the federal level. We're going to send them back to the states, where the states can determine how to structure them, how to fashion them to meet the needs of their own people. So, for instance, do you know how many federal workforce training programs we have? 49. 49. Reporting to 8 different agencies. Take the money, send it back to the states. Let the states craft their own programs for their own people. And by the way, what's left? Bring it down to size. Make it smaller. We have too many federal employees. Through attrition, I'll cut it by at least 10%, and I want to link the pay of government workers with the pay that exists in the private sector. The president wants to raise taxes. I want to lower taxes. I want a 20% across the board reduction in taxes and a simplification plan. The president has a view on energy. He said the other day he likes all of the above. And I thought about that for a moment. It's like, Well, maybe what he means is he likes all the sources of energy that are above the ground, all right? So wind and solar. We like wind and solar too, but we also like the sources of energy that are below the ground. Oil, natural gas, and coal. We're going to become energy independent. I don't know that there's ever been a presidency that's been more attuned to the people that provided money to his party, which are the public unions, the private sector unions, the trial lawyers. He has been doing their bidding by saying we're not going to open up new markets for American goods. In the last 3 years, 3.5 years, China and the European Union nations have opened up some 44 different trade agreements at various stages with other nations. We've opened up none. The 3 we got were negotiated by his predecessor, George W. Bush. That's because no question, the unions don't like these trade agreements. And then, of course, you had the decision by the National Labor Relations Board telling Boeing you can't build a factory in a right-to-work state. Again, that's what his special interests were telling him to do. And then, of course, he took some of your money to invest in some businesses of the people who contributed to his campaigns. People say he likes to pick winners and losers. I said, no, he just likes to pick losers. The right course for America's economy is not to have the government trying to guide the economy and pick winners and losers, or to bow to the special interests that paid for their campaigns. The right course for America's economy is to return to consumer-driven free markets, and I will get that job done. The president says he wants to transform America. I don't want to transform America. I want to restore to America the principles that made us the hope of the earth. And if I'm so fortunate that I can become president of this great country, I will endeavor to unite America again. I will not do as this president is doing, dividing us at every occasion, attacking one American after the other, trying to find one scapegoat, trying to find someone who can, by virtue of attacking them, can divert from his failures economically. I will bring America together because I do believe that we are one nation under God. If I'm so fortunate to become president, I will not apologize for success here at home. And I will certainly not apologize for America's success abroad. This nation has done more to free people from tyranny and to help lift people out of poverty by virtue of the principles that these great founders had in mind and shared with the world than any other nation in history. This nation, we have no reason to apologize for the greatness of America. The founders expected us to not only live by the principles about which they wrote, but also to preserve them and protect them. And over the centuries, over 1 million men and women have paid the ultimate sacrifice, made the ultimate sacrifice in defense of those principles and those freedoms. And it's an image in my mind as I recognize that the great majority of the people in this country, I think all the people in this country, revere those who have fought and died for the preservation of our liberty. I remember I was serving as the governor of my state towards the end of my term, and we got a call from the airport saying that the remains of one of our soldiers killed in Iraq, as I recall, was being sent back to Massachusetts. He was coming in on a U.S. Airways flight, and the parents had been called, but they lived too far away to get to the airport to receive the body, and they wondered if I could come in their stead, because my office was closer to the airport, and I said, of course. So we drove to the airport and drove out on the tarmac with the police escort, and the U.S. Airways jet came in and stopped at the terminal in Boston, and the people got off the aircraft, and then the luggage came down the conveyor belt, and then the casket appeared and came down the conveyor belt. And I put my hand over my heart, and the state troopers that I was with saluted. And I happened, as I was there, very emotional, to look up at the terminal, the big glass wall there. In Boston, the terminal has this huge glass wall for U.S. Airways, and it seems that the people who got off the aircraft had seen all the police cars on the tarmac. So they all lined up against the window to see what was going on. And then the people walking down the hall, getting to their flights or going home, they saw the people lined up against the glass, so they crowded in behind them. It's quite a crowd. Every person I saw had their hand on their heart. We're patriotic people. We love this country. When I think of America, when I think of our future, I think of scenes like that, where we come together. We need a president who will not attack fellow Americans, who will bring us together. You know, it's always made me feel a little taller and stand a little straighter, as I'm sure it has you, to know that we have a gift that no one else in the world has. We're American. Something we've always known. People around the world know there's something very special about America. It means something different to each of us, but it means something special to all of us. Today there are some who question that around the world. Maybe even some among us question that. We're bringing back that confidence and that commitment and that love for America. And making sure that destiny is consistent with the principles of our great founding. And we're doing that because we believe in America. We believe in the principles that made this nation the nation it is. We love America. We're going to bring it back because of our conviction in America. I need your help. I need to make sure that those who believe in those principles are willing to work and stand up and make sure we take back this great country and keep America as it's always been, the hope of the earth. Thank you so much. You guys are terrific.